Good morning, everybody. This is Beth Guidem with Talking Purple, and I want to talk to you guys today. There is so much going on in the world, and where I had left my notes for last night, this morning, I think I'm going to change up some of what I'm going to talk about because it has been a very busy morning here in Kingwood, Texas. Um, what I want to start with is some things that have gone on since last night and into this morning. And they are a prime example of really why I started this podcast. We are living in a time where information is being weaponized, and it's being done on the left, it's being done on the right, and it's not the left doing it to the right and the right doing it to the left. Some of it is the right doing it to the right. And the problem is in the world that we live in today, what's happening is that this echo chamber of social media that we live in, once something comes out, what I think everybody's learned is it doesn't come back. You can't correct it. You can't defend it. You can't discuss it. If somebody says to me tomorrow, I murder puppies on the weekends, I have no way to take that back. I have no way to fix that because now it's out there. And the other problem that I see is that we literally have no idea to know what is real and what's not. So let's start with a few things that I see go by every day. And I have to chuckle because they're fake. So first of all, we'll start with the Gilmore Girls reunion. That's not happening. There is going to be a third season of Mindhunter. I loved Mindhunter. Apparently, according to the social media, there's going to be a third season of that. Yesterday, Macaulay Culkin died. Not really, he didn't. Let's see, what else did I see? Oh, Neil Diamond is canceling all his concerts, as is Alan Jackson, as is, I don't know, the list. Everybody's canceling their appearances in New York City because of Mandami. The list just goes on and on and on of what's real and what's fake. And I mean, I just talked about real and fake on Sunday with this whole Epstein thing. And the Democrats releasing documents, woo, look, it's Trump. And then it's the lady that said Trump did nothing, but we're going to redact her name so we can promulgate a false narrative. I hear it on the radio. And what I think it is, and what I think I'm seeing is that people have learned in order to gain audience, unless you have charisma and personality and depth and breadth of knowledge, you can't get an audience unless you say stupid stuff. And I've been out there doing this now. This will be I think today's episode's my eighth whole episode. Okay. And I'm very pleased at the traction that this thing is getting because I think people understand that you can't believe everything you see. I'm going to try to be a straight shooter as best as possible. And that I at least have some ability to be able to talk to a computer screen or an audience because there is no audience here in my office. It's just me and can do so in an entertaining and engaging way. Now, to my credit or my defense, whichever way you want to say that, since COVID, it put me in a situation where I had to do this and I had to learn to do this comfortably. And I do it just fine because I'm very comfortable in my views. I understand, what I think and what I don't think, and I know why. So I'm very easy to defend my position on anything. So it kind of dovetails into this, if you will. So the first thing that I'm gonna mention is the other day I was looking at social media and someone tagged me in a social media post saying that I'm still a fan of Dan Crenshaw's. He's my congressman. The word fan is not necessarily inappropriate. And they made the insinuation of, whatever. And what I'm a fan of is that Dan Crenshaw has represented his district, the people in his district. We have a very serious flooding problem here, which I have addressed. And that's not a national issue per se, but we have a flooding issue and it's a big problem. And because we have this flooding issue, we need to have a congressman that understands that and helps utilize things like FEMA and HUD and the way the government works in order for us to get things accomplished. Unfortunately, the federal government has become so intertwined that a local regional flooding issue has to go all the way up to Washington to be able to get support. And I'm going to say something that most people didn't realize, but when we had a Melda down here in Houston back in 2019, we could not get a disaster declaration out of Washington, which Donald Trump was the president at the time. He doesn't want to give disaster declarations right away. He wants the local government to try to come in and do its own support system, which is fine, except we were in a part of the county that was particularly bad hit. I had people that didn't have food, that didn't have the necessities that they needed. Thankfully, I have a very robust Catholic church, and they were able to help me run a food pantry and relief effort for 3 weeks until the federal government stepped in, was able to provide that aid. Beyond that, I had people coming from Conroe, which is about an hour north of here, maybe 30 minutes if there's no traffic. They were driving to my neighborhood every day because we were the only ones that had supplies and were the only ones organized enough to do it. Now, I guess you could say, well, we did it around the federal government, and we did. But the reality is that the federal government has enveloped and taken over so many aspects of things that it's very difficult for local communities to work without the involvement of the Fed. So it's imperative when it comes to, I've got to get the Army Corps of Engineers to approve this, and I don't just have to deal with the city of Houston that I have a mayor that I directly helped elect or didn't help elect, depending on who you are and what side of the equation you're on. So it's imperative to have that congressman. I don't appreciate people coming at Kingwood that don't live in Kingwood, that have a lot of money that would never need to walk into a homeless shelter or a food pantry or need supplies to clean their house or need the Salvation Army to give them a gift card, to walk in here and not talk to the people that live in this community and just start talking garbage. And that's kind of what's happened this morning. And I don't like that. The people of Kingwood, whether you like Dan Crenshaw or not, doesn't matter to me. The people of Kingwood, Dan Crenshaw has been very good to, and they cannot afford not to have this guy. And let me tell you one other reason I'm going to say this. Okay. The guy that's running against him continues to be a flood denier. He came and he talked and okay, great. Except that he still tells me my house was flooded by the SJRA, and it absolutely was not. It was flooded by Perry Homes that came in and clear cut a piece of property. And I can get into the details of all of that. But the reality is the SJRA had nothing to do with flooding my neighborhood. It was Perry Homes and bad building policies from Montgomery County, to which he lives in and which he participates in. So how am I to trust somebody when they're not even willing to come and speak to us or have a discussion with us? I got a letter in the mail with a whole bunch of made up stuff in it. And here's the problem. You cannot proof source whether something is saying right or not. And I think this is a humongous issue. All right. So this morning I wake up and my phone's going off and I have all these people texting me about a travel ban in 3 months in Mexico and Dan Crenshaw. And there's no such thing as a travel ban. There is no such thing as a travel ban. Dan Crenshaw can get on a plane and go wherever he wants in the world this minute. So what is this all about? And what are we looking at? I think the problem is that politically people started to understand that I can just say anything I want without recourse. Even if I put a cease and desist on you, you still can do whatever you want because it's now out there. And there's no way to set that record right. And it's aggravating because yes, statements have been released and I can continue to give example after example of persons that this happens to. I keep going back to Charlie Kirk. The people that what happened to Charlie Kirk and what does people think and what does people not think? These are big problems that were an issue. It's an issue. I cannot continue to condone and not speak out about how some social media is being misused to propagate false narratives. And it's being done on the left, it's being done on the right. And I need you guys, if you're willing to listen to me, then do your own homework, understand what happened. So what I'm understanding and gathering out of all of this is there's I don't know, they're going to put out some kind of something and set this all straight. The problem is none of you are going to get the information. And I'm here to tell you that there's no such thing as a travel ban. Dan Crenshaw can go wherever he wants in the world. And the fact that everybody's believing it on the front side, I don't even know what to do with that. Oh, one other thing I'm going to add is that the travel ban happened because of the Democrats in the sense of this. Okay. They shut down the government. Nobody went anywhere for more than 41 days on official government business. So although we want to say there's a ban, there was no ban. They were on their way to get on the plane, and the next thing you know, the travel ban happened and or excuse me, the government shutdown happened and it grounded everybody. So it's not right. We were talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene this morning too, and I like MTG. I always have. I've met her in person. She is a much different person when you sit and have a conversation with her than what I think the media displays on TV. She understands her position. She understands who she is. She understands her district. And, she made Donald Trump mad. So Donald Trump came after her and basically kind of was, he kind of was going to go find somebody to go run and he was going to move somebody to his district or to her district or something to run against her. Okay. So I understand why Trump acts the way he does because he's the president and he's under constant attack. So you never know whether the attack is real, whether the attack is fake. He's from New York, so we all have a brawler mentality. You punch me, I'm going to punch you back and three times harder on Sunday. I just want to let you know in case anybody's confused. All right? So I think the rest of the country doesn't necessarily understand that. There's ways to communicate with people that play into their strengths and their weaknesses. And again, that's why I came up with Talking Purple, because we should be thinking about when you conversate with somebody, how do you have a conversation with them so that you guys can interact properly and get to a realistic, you can't just go say whatever you want to somebody and then they react badly and then you're mad and they're mad and you're getting somebody to run for their Congress seat. And that's that. But I think the problem is, and I'm going to tell you something else that I saw go by my desk this morning that kind of has me a little ratcheted up. I saw this thing saying that the Bushes are planning a comeback after Trump, that they're lying in wait. I got news for you. Nobody wants the Bushes brand of Republicanism, okay? That's why you lost. That's why John McCain lost. That's why Mitt Romney lost. That's why Bob Dole lost. That's why even George H.W. Bush lost. You are milk toast, stand for nothing people that only want to use the power of the federal government for what you want to use the power of the federal government for. You have no protection of this country. You have no caring about this country. And, I do think George W. Bush, he did a good job after 9/11. But again, he was another kind of weak kind of guy. We don't need weak people. Weak people are not leaders. And that's why we are in the situation we are. Okay. To my mind, and I guess I'm just going to say it how I think it. Bill Clinton was the last Democrat that knew how to communicate with people and bring about consensus. And the country did really pretty good underneath him. I didn't vote for him for a second term just because I didn't like some of the things that went on. I didn't like the Hillary care or whatever the heck that was. Obama, we can say whatever you want about Obama, but he was a master communicator to the point where he's also a master manipulator. Okay. So he was able to manipulate the masses and keep down the rhetoric in Saint Obama, and all well, fine, and good. But you know what? He knew how to take his point and how to communicate it, but he was probably one of the worst things that ever happened to this country because he community organized. And if you guys understand what community organizing is, it's ways to divide people so that they're against each other, and then you can go in and do what you want. There's a whole book on it. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll give you the title of the book. If you're really interested on how you should be doing this, you need to go read the book because it's all about dividing and conquering people. And if you notice this, that since Obama came along, we have been divided. We've been divided by every single thing out there, not just race, not just sexuality, not just, I don't know, even left and right. None of it. We have been divided and subdivided and divided again. All right. And the division needs to stop. So when I see us seeing somebody leaking something to a thing called Punchbowl that's not true because they need a sensational headline so they can charge their $360 a year for their whatever they're doing. I will tell you, if this gets monetized and anybody ever pays me for anything I'll do, I'm going to be the person I am today. I'm not going to take kickbacks. There's people here on the radio that take money for their support. So they get on the radio and they act all like, oh, I'm outraged and oh, I don't like this guy. And oh, it's because he's being paid to do that. Pay for play, people. So you cannot believe everything you say. And I'll tell you something else. I mean, I'm wagging my finger. I'm kind of torqued up a little bit here. But the other thing that you see an advertisement in the newspaper, or not an advertisement, you see an article on the TV and they come and interview somebody and that person was paid for that interview. They have paid a publicist to place that story. Okay. They're being paid. Like I get offers all the time because in my real life, I'm an expert on Google. Okay. I get offers all the time for me to come and speak and give me an award and do this. And it's anywhere from $500 to $5,000 for me to be given that award. This pay for play and this conflation of what goes on in this world needs to stop because nobody knows what the truth is anymore. And I think that's the problem. So we live in these, I'm going to use a really big word, bifurcated societies that we're all tribally fighting with each other and we're in a constant state of turmoil. And it's only because it is allowing people that are supposed to be in charge and doing good for our lives or helping us or defending us. By the way, what the heck is it with telling the military that they don't have to do anything, all this seditious of behavior? You don't have to follow something if you think it's against the law. First of all, who the hell even knows the law at this point? Nobody, because the law is made up as we go along. So there's not even a real law. But if I move past that, find me where the president broke the law because we're going to say he's a pedophile. We have no proof of that because it didn't happen. You're going to say he's a convicted felon. Well, it's on charges that were massaged to make it be that he fell under something that was grandfathered out so that politically we could go after him. I have a list a mile long of laws that aren't laws that people are saying that are doing things that it's just insane what is going on. And it continues to be insane. So I suggest to everybody that you take the time and you learn the truth. There is no travel ban. Dan Crenshaw can go wherever he wants in the United States of America or the globe. There is nobody stopping him from doing that. Apparently this was a political hit job by somebody, which, I mean, if you have a fight, what do? You go out and do a hit job on him. And then it's picked up by the local guy here on the radio, and he wants to come out and go after everybody. And, oh, look what he did. Go vote for, you're going to vote for a guy that's going to approve flooding people so children die in their beds. Are you happy? Because that's what goes on here. I already have 15 dead people because of this flooding situation. Okay? I already have dead people. Those people do not have their family members sitting at a table with them for this Thanksgiving because of the lack of action. We have people out in the middle of Texas that have their children that won't be there this year, or whole families that were swept away in a flood because people like Steve Toft wouldn't approve an emergency notification system for Central Texas. So let's really be realistic here and understand that there's real life consequences for all this. And it's not just about how much money you can make, how many people you can hurt, how much you can, and I shouldn't say how many people you can hurt, but how many people you can defraud so that you can have power and extra money and all this other stuff that goes on, because it is flat out wrong. I don't care what anybody says. And it's really wrong when the Republicans are doing it to the Republicans. You don't see Democrats doing that. You do not see them ever do it. They may do it in a back room, and that is why they are so successful in their messaging, because it is cohesive. And the Republican Party needs to wake the heck up and start following that mold. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again. Okay, so that's my talk on this morning stuff. And oh, by the way, it's been a whole morning of stuff like that. The next thing I want to talk about is the Catholic Church, because that seems to go right on in with this. Again, another group of people that are playing politics with things that need to get a grip. Okay. So, as you may have heard, the Catholic bishops came out, their council of bishops. I'm Catholic, just so you know. I was born in a Catholic orphanage. I was taken from a Catholic orphanage, brought to the United States of America. So I'm about as Catholic as they come because I started in a Catholic orphanage. All right. And I go to church every week and I participate. And so I'm still very much active in the Catholic Church. So today, so I get up, I have my little text group with my little Catholic women from my parish, and I see this go by that the Catholic bishops have condemned Donald Trump for how he is deporting everybody. Okay. First of all, last time I checked, the Vatican has a wall around it. Okay. I cannot, as a Catholic, as an American with a passport. Oh, by the way, I think I even have an Italian citizenship out there somewhere. I cannot walk into the Vatican. All right. This country had at least 20 million people walk into it, and they are all unvetted. And because they're unvetted, we don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing. We do know that we have a bunch of people, yet again, that won't be at Thanksgiving because their behavior, we're letting the jails out and sending them to America. It's not like they're just, all little mommies and daddies that want to come out. It's they open the jails and let them out and send them to the United States. So they're all running all over and doing whatever. Okay. And anybody that wants to say that's not happening, I'm sorry. I hope you never get on the wrong side of that. Okay. Because there are people like Laken Riley that are on the wrong side of it, and she won't be at Thanksgiving. Every time you hear about a dead person, you have to say that person won't be at Thanksgiving. Okay. They won't be at Christmas. They won't be at their next birthday. They may miss the graduation of their child or whatever. Okay. So the bishops came out, they said all of this. Now the Pope came out and he said, well, I sort of agree a little bit with what the Pope said. Okay. He said he doesn't support open borders, which is good, because my next suggestion was for Donald Trump to airlift the people from the United States to the Vatican and drop them off in the Vatican. They can all stand in St. Peter's Basilica or St. Peter's Square there and put their tents up and go live there. So I don't have to do that because the Pope doesn't want them either. He said we have the right to enforce our borders. I'm also going to say this, and every person needs to understand this. The Catholic Church has a rule book, and it's called the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And there's rules about illegal immigration in that. Okay. And what it says is that should you illegally find yourself in a foreign country, you should respect with gratitude the heritage of the country that receives you, and you should obey the laws and help carry the civil burdens. Okay, that's what it says. Now, what that means is you come over, you should become legal. I understand there's no path for legalization at the moment. I'm going to address that in a second. You follow the law, which means you don't murder the nurse on the side of the road. You don't kidnap children and cut them and kill them like you did Jocelyn Nungari. And you pay taxes. You participate in the system. You don't come here and sponge off the system, okay? Because it's going to bankrupt the country. And if you can't do that, then find some place that you can. Because I get up every day and I go to work. I start work anywhere from 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning because that's what it takes me to keep a roof over my head, food on my table, my family fed, my employees with their paychecks. I do it every day. Okay? I don't take a handout. There was points in time that I had a roommate that did, and as soon as they could get out of the system, they did. That's the way the system should work. Okay? We've got people on TikTok complaining about they're not getting their SNAP check. Okay, I don't know what to do with you. Go do Uber driving. Go to McDonald's and get a job. I mean, they will give you a job. There's work shortages. There's not enough employees. It's not that there's not enough in jobs. There's not enough employees because everybody's sitting home waiting for their SNAP check. I think we need to change our attitude a little bit here. I think that's kind of where I'm at. But if you notice, it says that they should be the country that receives them, you should obey the law and carry the civic burdens. Okay? So can we stop boohooing all over the place that people are getting deported and start demanding that the law be changed instead of blocking ICE? Call your congressman and find out why there's not legislation to legalize people. Okay? To put a path to citizenship in. And I think the path to citizenship is very clear. I think that these folks, if they can pass a background check, they've been living here, they've got a clean nose, they've been participating in the economy, whatever, 5 years, like this Dreamer Act. I think it should be opened up. I think it should be given everybody a permanent status. You just don't have the right to vote. Oh, wait, we don't want that. Why don't we want that? Because we think we imported a whole bunch of Democrats. I got news for the Democrat Party, okay? The Hispanic population of the world are God-fearing, God-loving people, all right? They're far closer to the Republican Party, which is why you're getting blown out in South Texas and up in Colorado, losing whole counties, because the Hispanic population, including the Cuban population down in Miami, okay, they don't prescribe to little boys or little girls or boys in little girls bathrooms, and they don't think boys should be in girls sports, and they don't think you should be indoctrinating your kids in school and all the other stuff that you guys seem to want to jump to Stark and stand for. Okay, they go to church on Sunday, they're God-fearing people, and they have been bought up with some type of a moral compass that allows them to move forward. You guys can be mad or not mad at me, I don't care, but that's the reality of it. Okay, so you bought the wrong people to the country because by demographics and outlook, most of them would be quote unquote Republican voters if you actually really looked at it. Okay, so don't think you imported a whole underclass of people that are going to come and vote you back in, because that's the only way you can get support. All right. And I really do believe that. Win people over, put legislation in that gets them a path to citizenship, that allows them to come out. If you want to be the leaders and you want to win a midterm, instead of talking trash and talking stupid and saying all the stuff you say, come out and say, look, we want to introduce a bill that makes people legal in this country. We want to fix the immigration problem so that we can start to go forward with it. Those people don't get a right to vote, period, end of story, but they do have a path that they can start to become citizens on. What most people don't understand is that that path doesn't exist. So what do you want them to do? You want to stay here and let them just stay here forever with no repercussions? Or do you want to see what we can do to fix this? I am going to say, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. The Republicans and the Democrats both do not want to fix the problem. They want to campaign on the problem. And we have a lot of that going on, and that needs to stop. Stand up, take a stand, fix the problem, and let's move on to the next problem. Okay, so I'm very much upset with that in the Catholic Church and how they are. But then I found this out. So here's a little nugget for you. You know why the Catholic Church is upset? They're not upset because Trump is deporting people. What they are upset about is the fact that um, the NGOs, that they were being given money by the Biden administration, and the Trump administration has stopped giving Catholic charities money. That's what they're upset about. So it comes down yet again, who's lining their pocket off the United States taxpayer while they're getting murdered in the street and their kids are missing from the Thanksgiving table because we let a bunch of criminals in the country unvetted. Vet the people, get the bad ones out, and let's get on with it and stop the slaughter, people. You have an obligation. That's your obligation to do. Stop the slaughter. Okay. So that's that. So I was appalled when I found out that the Catholic Church would be advocating things that hurt people, that go against its own thing, that says, again, I'm reading it right from it, should respect with gratitude the spiritual heritage of the country for which receives them. That we're going to go against that because somebody somewhere is giving them money under this NGO program. And for those of you that don't know what an NGO program is, it's a non-government organization that receives taxpayer dollars to do something that the government can't do. So they pay these nonprofits. I'm going to tell you what, somebody needs to look into that too, because it's money laundering. Okay. It's why Tony Soprano owns Satriali's. So he had a way to wash his money that he was getting out the back, and they washed it through the front of it. Okay. We all have heard money laundering. We've all seen The Godfather. We know how this works. That's what these NGOs are, in my opinion. Okay. Being given government taxpayer money is being given to these organizations that are not, they're not, it's the whole thing. Just, I'm going to do a show on NGOs just one day all on itself. Okay. So I think I have said enough today. So I think I'm going to stop there. Because I could go on with this for another, hour if you really let me. So I'm going to call it quits there today, and we'll see what comes up over the weekend. Maybe I'll be happier. Next week's Thanksgiving week, so maybe you all will get to be able to spend time with your family. This ought to be good because we're going to have some that are going to we're going to put people at a table that may or may not get along anymore. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's where we're at for today. That's all I've got to say. I hope you guys have a great weekend if I don't decide to hop on here before. And I will see you next week, shortly before Thanksgiving.